Mayor Brown, what kind of qualities and experience will you be looking for in a new library director?
Well, I believe the Library Commission will make that decision, but if you're asking me what would I envision, I would envision somebody who has first the good judgment as a librarian to do what you do as a librarian, make it an educational institution or an educational tool, to make it a tool for people who just really want to relax with reading materials, with visual materials, or with audio-visual materials, etc. Someone who has the respect of academicians and other librarians all over the country, someone who has a vision about what branch libraries ought to do and what they ought to be and how they can relate to the communities, someone who has the skills and the ability to develop outreach, and someone who has extraordinary talent to inspire personnel. Branch librarians run their operation, but the head librarian really ought to be someone whom they have great respect for, and they interact in such a way that they really become a part of the community and really part of the delivery system. Also someone who will have the good judgment to find them somebody who can do the nuts and bolts of bookkeeping, of management of resources, person hours, and all of the things that go with personnel, someone who will be hired to do that, and someone who will have the good judgment to hire somebody to do that, and then finally someone who can get along with other librarians. Librarians have, if you've been previously exposed, they're really kind of dedicated people. They're kind of artistic in some cases, in many cases quite intellectual. So you got to have somebody who also generates a working relationship with those individuals. And somebody, frankly, with the same kind of vision that Ken Dowland had for library purposes.
In terms of technology, do you mean?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mayor Brown, just one last question on the library. Mr. Dowland appointed Kathy Page to take over the library temporarily. Is that fine with you? There was some question you might want an interim director of your own?
Well, I believe that the Library Commission, again, will make the best decision in that regard. I would think, however, you would want, as an interim director, a workout artist. Somebody needs to go in there and begin the painful process of making the library make sense from a dollars and cents standpoint. I don't know the person whose name which you speak. That could very well be a person that's talented, but it has to be somebody that has that skill, those skills and ability, because we're being asked to supply at this moment $1.3 million, and before July 1st it could be another $2 million to get this ship completely afloat. And I'm not about to use the reserve for that purpose without making sure that I've got somebody in there who is going to be able to do an accountability for each one of the dollars and cents. And then the audit, which is due, will also give us some instructions on how we can begin the process of curing the library. I want someone who can take that audit, interpret it quickly, and execute on that audit. And it may not be someone who intends to stay with the library. It may not be someone who would like to make application to be the head librarian. And it may be that this individual of whom you speak has removed herself from any of those respective considerations. One is she doesn't intend to continue with the library, and number two, she certainly doesn't want the directorship. And if that's so, she may be ideal. But I'm telling you, those are the qualities that you need for an interim director to make this thing work, in my opinion.
So are you saying that if you get somebody in there who you think can kind of get the library's act together financially, that you would okay a supplemental appropriation to get rid of the rest of the deficit?
I've already indicated to the Library Commissioners that at the $1.3 million would be forthcoming as soon as there's somebody whom I have some faith in can spend it correctly and can begin to do the corrective work that needs to be done. I'm hopeful that the audit doesn't show that there's an additional $1.6 million or $7 million or whatever the number is that seems to be needed. I'm just hopeful that that doesn't happen, although Steve Agostini tells me that there is some projected possibility.
Is that the $2 million that you're talking about, Mayor Brown?
Yes.
And the nationwide search, do you support that?
Absolutely.
Do you want a nationwide search?
Absolutely. I want to find the best and the brightest to run the San Francisco Library, because I really wanted to be someone who wants a job from now on. We've had, I suppose, in my time, we've had several librarians. I remember when Kevin Starr was here. I remember the librarian that just preceded Mr. Dowlins, and now we got Mr. Dowlins. I recall that Mayor Jordan terminated all the library commissioners in some dispute. I know the citizens stepped forward and funded the libraries like they've not funded anything else in this city by direct tap on the general fund. All those things tell me that this is a town that loves its library and that respects its library and that would like to see its library become a stable institution that would not be subject to the winds of change politically. I want to see us have that kind of a leader at the head of the library.
The Library Commission president says in order to do a nationwide search, they'd have to have some money and some funds additional to what they're in the hole now. Are you willing to come forward with some of that money, or are you going to send them to sort of the foundations or private citizens?
I'd be a hell of a lot more impressed, Greg, if they stepped forward and said, in partnership with Friends of the Library, we believe a nationwide search can be afforded. I am certainly not interested in singularly funding anything as it relates to a search. You know, I don't think it should take money to do a search. I think people ought to be looking for jobs.